I've seen the startup community grow from just about nothing, 12, 13 years ago to, I think, a very exciting community now.
Taiwan is a very interesting place. It accepts various cultures from anywhere, and it's deeply influenced by countries like Japan, United States, China, and Korea. Taiwan is also one of the most digitalized country in the world, and the human resource is not that expensive. Well, it is a good place to test or develop such an application. I mean AI application here.
The fact that Taiwan is physically small, but has so many great engineering companies and factories and suppliers mean that if you're developing, hardware products,
Most Taiwanese VC or CVCs, they're not tend to take risk. Well, well,
you want to take in money from outside of Taiwan. In many cases, Taiwan is not the place to do that. I mean, because Taiwan charges, for example, a 20% tax on dividends, if you're going to send it outside of Taiwan.
Firstly, we will say founder or co-founders' personalities. For example, we saw many Taiwanese team, and they have good education, but they all like they're too Chinese or Chinese culture. So sometimes they do not have vision. You know, what vision? What you are you going to change the world? What are you going to do? They do not have less sort of concept. That's the biggest problem. So we focus their personality in the very place.
There are some entrepreneurs that are so in love with their own plan that they just will not listen to anybody else. And I see that as a huge red flag.
My red flag is like if I see someone, a founder who attend to tons of incubators or accelerators, and he go to a podcast or a lot of interviews and try to become a KOL. Well, these sort of actions are my red flag.
Welcome again, and thank you for joining us this special event. We're going to talk about startup funding in Taiwan, how to raise money in VCs and other angel investors, and so on. So today we have two incredible individuals from the local players in the Taiwan ecosystems who are in VC and or angel as well, and so who works with the who works with the startups very well, really for a long time, and who is joining from the Taiwan today. First one is Elias. Let me quickly introduce by screen sharing. So first off, Elias, an angel investor and a co-organizer, sponsor of pitch event, the pitch event called Dragon's Chamber, and the founder of two companies. Kigo, excuse me for my pronunciation if not correct or not. Kigo Mobility and then Inspire, right? Sounds like Inspire, right? He is also the author of the book How to Start a Business in Taiwan, the ultimate guide for the legal and cultural knowledge that is needed to be successfully start a company in Taiwan. And we have Gaviann, which is a Series A investor at Glassbox Technologies, and he is a seasoned venture capitalist and an angel investor with a strong focus on software applications, particularly in AI, fintech, cybersecurity, and virtual production for the gaming and film industries. With that being said, I would like to welcome Gaviann to introduce himself, and then Elias. Then after that, we will start with the discussion. Gaviann, stage yours.
Okay. Hello, this is Gaviann. Catcher itself, it was the one of the most important company within Apple's supply chain, and its market cap has been with top 10 within Taiwanese stock market. I learned a lot. I was in a FA company in about 2014, and it was the year I met my mentor, who he was a panel of Founders Club, which is the fundraising platform of Y Combinator, and he taught me a lot about early stage investment. And it's also him make me realize my weakness and what I like. So I quit to join Capture Technology as a staff of the chairman. How the chairman of such international giant make decision and how he review his business with the staff. Then I joined Wingway Technology as its internal auditor. They were experiencing the process to go IPO, and in this experience, before I quit, and besides the IT manager, I could say that I was probably the only one who know every information flow of the company, and I got this experience within 4 years. So if you ask me why I go to if why I become a VC, well, I might tell you that it seems like the God guided me to become a VC. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gaviann. All right, Elias, stage is yours.
Hey, everybody. Very nice to be here with you today. So I'm from Sweden originally, moved away from Sweden in 1994, went to the US to study, and then I went to Japan for a while as a student there, and then eventually ended up in Taiwan. So I've been around for a while. So I've been here in Taiwan for the last 25 years. And I also identify, I would say, mostly as an entrepreneur. I tried to set up my first business when I was 15 years old, and I tried again when I was 18. I started a few companies while I was a student in the US. And when I came to Taiwan, I think I started working on my first Taiwanese business my third week here in Taiwan. So, keep on trying, basically. And my main business is Inspire, which is one of Taiwan's largest B2B marketing companies. And we mainly work for large international IT companies, but which we will talk about later. For the last 3 years, we've done a lot with startups as well. And starting already from like 2005, I started organizing events specifically for immigrant entrepreneurs in Taiwan, and I have done a lot with that. So probably organized hundreds and hundreds of events. I also wrote a book called How to Start a Business in Taiwan because I noticed that pretty much everybody had the same questions over and over again. And for the last 10 years, I have been the co-organizer of Dragon's Chamber, which is Taiwan's only pitch event specifically for immigrant entrepreneurs in Taiwan. And, that has led me into angel investments as well. So I have invested in maybe 10 companies or so, small amounts, but it's always exciting to see where it's going.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you. Really appreciate it. So we're gonna dive into panel discussion from now on. We will be starting to get to know more our speakers today and why they start in Taiwan first, and then we will be discussing what really investors are looking for when they evaluate in Taiwan. So everything that is actually universally curious by the startup people, startup founders, we will be more classify limit as the Taiwan angle, because in every part of the world it's very different. Just like every company is very different, so every region is very ecosystem also very different too. We'd like to know what is different than other regions in the world. So we will break it down to the fundraising process, how to pitch successfully, the first meeting, how the first meeting look like. We will be exploring the pitfalls, how to structure a deal, how the equity works there, because it's just different, right? Everywhere is different. Next, we will be diving into a little bit more, post-funding relationship things and how to make the most out of the investor partnership and so on. And finally, we were going to be looking, I think this is the most asked question actually, international funders perspective. We're going to be tap into. So it's going to be honest, in-depth, and highly actionable conversation. So buckle up, audience. I mean, since you guys already explained your background and everything and why you started in Taiwan already in place, I will go ahead and then talk about the ecosystem mostly in order to, save the time, because everything was already being talked. So first off, let's start with the Elias. So because you're a foreigner, you moved there, right? You have many, comparison between other countries. Japan, US, most recently in the last 25 years, and then Taiwan, right? How does the Taiwan startup ecosystem, different in compared to the other markets, especially in Asia, other countries?
Yeah, so all the questions that you gave me beforehand, I think this is the one that I have the hardest time to actually answer because, I spend nearly all my time here in Taiwan, and I have been a part of the startup community here for forever and ever. So how it really compares to other countries, I honestly don't think I can really answer. I think I've seen the startup community grow from just about nothing, 12, 13 years ago to, I think, a very exciting community now. But I think there's other countries that also do that. So, Gaviann, maybe you have more insights into the different countries.
Well, like you said, things are complex in Asia. Every country has its own advantage and disadvantage. But if we review this market from VC's viewpoint, there might be something I can tell you. For example, the stock market in Taiwan, beside besides the Chinese exchanges like Shanghai or Hong Kong, and if we consider the volume of an exchange, Taiwan exchange might be the number two in East and Southeast Asia, just after Tokyo exchange. Which means if you are an Asian startup, Taiwan can probably be your best choice to go public. Especially, it is the moment that the world just realized this island is the core of semiconductor industry, and investors are putting their eyes here in near future years. That's what we can see. So from this side, I would say, well, Taiwan is there's the difference between Taiwan and other countries in access.
But I would add to that maybe one of the peculiar things with Taiwan is that there are certain laws. For example, if you want to take in money from outside of Taiwan, in
Yeah.
many cases Taiwan is not the place to do that. I mean, because Taiwan charges, for example, a 20% tax on dividends. If you're going to send it outside of Taiwan,
Yeah.
you have the investment commission that needs to review each and every investment, no matter how small, which, in many cases makes that, startups that wants to go public or wants to go global, are very, very often based in Taiwan, but very seldom, registered here.
Yes, indeed.
Interesting. So it makes them to start a company from the day zero from overseas. Can we say like that, Liz?
Yeah, if you're planning to raise money from non-Taiwanese sources, then most people will register their business elsewhere. It could be the US, could be a BVI, could be, Singapore, right? But just because it's so, for example, if a foreign investment firm invested into Inspire, which is a Taiwan-based company, and I will pay them dividends, they have to pay 20% on that. If I were basing my company in Singapore, they would pay 2%. It's a fairly big change. So there are some legal issues that it means that most global-minded startups will not keep their holding company here in Taiwan.
I see. Interesting. I mean, those are the things that I really didn't know it. That's why these kind of events is very useful.
You
Learn a
need
lot.
to read my book.
Seriously, you put in
Yeah.
the chat so we all can be benefited out of this.
All
Really.
right.
Well, there are some other reasons about that. For example, if you wanna use some usual global investment agreement like SAFE or KISS, well, it's not the law, the Company Act in Taiwan do not support it. And most decision makers, if they are older than 50 or 60 years old, and never think about using SAFE or KISS. And that's also the reason that we don't suggest you to set an entity here, but rather to we would better it would be a better idea to make your company in KY or BVI.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So there is no, similar version of the Safe or KISS or anything like this in Taiwan, right? Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Local version, localized version.
Yes, indeed.
Interesting. For example, in Japan, there is no exactly the Safe mode, but there is another convertible which is KISS, but the Japan version of KISS, which is JKISS. But anyway, there are still a question, especially for global investor standpoint. So, but it's still something, progress. For our agreement, for example, we also needed to be localized to Japan, but it was such a headache. Actually, it was not that easy. We needed to work with two different lawyers in order to settle down, to really understand comparatively work. That wasn't that much easy because our agreement is very much recognized globally and localized, but it wasn't easy that much here. Anyways, all right, let's move forward. I think we learned some basics, especially some challenges here. We learned especially the first question, but a bit we are in the how to say, I should not say pessimistic angle, but a little bit in the cautious angle. I'm curious about both of you. Like, what makes you excited about Taiwan? Again, I'd like to start from Elias because you bring it up this, and I'm curious as a foreigner also. What really makes you excited about it? Why Taiwan?
So, well, first of all, Taiwan is a fantastic place to live. It really is. But if you're talking about it from a startup perspective, I would say, Taiwan is world leading in a lot of industries. Like the IC industry, but also when it comes to bicycles and a lot of EV parts that are made here and stuff like that. And in later years, there's a lot of AI development that we have fairly old companies that like started with AI pretty long ago, like Appier and stuff like that, right? So like long before the rest of us kind of jumped on the whole ChatGPT bandwagon or whatever, there's been companies working on AI developments here and so on. So there's quite a few things that Taiwan is kind of at the forefront of, and I would say that if you're looking to build a startup that maybe can build on top of some of those maybe a little bit more traditional industries, like I started the company or several companies that have to do with electric vehicles and stuff like that. Well, then you're tapping into a fantastic network of suppliers and partners that I think is yeah. I mean, if you want to develop hardware products too, Taiwan, I would say, is world leading in that. You can do more for less than in just about any other parts of the world.
So advanced tech and the proximity of all the important partners is, I guess, one of the things that I took note here.
So let's say you wanted to let's say you want to do a hardware product. Like, I mean, we all like to talk about software and the scalability of software, but I kind of like hardware. I like things I can touch too. And the fact that Taiwan is physically small but has so many great engineering companies and factories and suppliers mean that if you're developing hardware products, I invested in a company more than 10 years ago. Gaviann actually, came and see me about that company back in the day.
Yes.
And, for less than, if I remember correctly, for less than about 40,000 US dollars, we developed 5 completely from scratch hardware products with, its own boards and everything. And I don't think we could have gotten that off the ground in another country that easily. And the fact that you can go and see all those suppliers in a very short period of time. I know there's some of our participants today that are even more knowledgeable about this than I am. But, I think this is very, very, very a big strength for Taiwan.
Oh, I mean, I convinced, honestly. I sold. I love Taiwan anyways. I love the people, the food, everything's great. I would love to develop more relationship, and I'm really excited to this, and with the program expanding there. So, Gaviann, I'm also curious about your opinions, on this as a local. So what are the positives?
Okay, well, as a Taiwanese, I will not say I feel exciting. I live here, for entire life, and such as what happened in the U.S. may come to Taiwan 1 year later. So because the VC in Taiwan, VC and CVC in Taiwan, could avoid FOMO or hype atmosphere, and about the ecosystem in Taiwan. I would say the most interesting thing is that it changes every year. In the past, Taiwanese VC peers never lived or thought like citizens from an island country. Concepts like C-Force, Go Global, were never on the list stock here, and Taiwan is a very comfortable zone to them. The trade war come, then the pandemic, then now here comes the tariff war. Everyone learned, everyone is learning in this island right now in this ecosystem, and it is a new era for both startup and VCs in this island. And well, this might be the most exciting things in this ecosystem. And if you want me to say some advantage here, well, Taiwan is a very interesting place. It accepts various culture from it accepts culture from anywhere, and it's deeply influenced by countries like Japan, United States, China, and Korea. While Taiwan is also one of the most digitalized country in the world, and the human resource is not that expensive. Well, it is a good place to test or develop application. I mean AI application here. Well, I think that's the advantage here.
I see, I see. That's great. All right, let's move on. I think we're still in the, pretty much, the bright side. I would like to continue from there. But we will be digging more of the challenges also because I like challenges. So if we can really solve these, maybe we can really contribute to Taiwan ecosystem more, right? So, but I'd like to a little bit move to the other side of the table, especially these startups. I want to solve the startups, you know. So what? Let's say you want to invest a startup company. This is the question that every founder asks, especially when it comes to local investors, right? So, what are the top three qualities you think that are most valuable for the Taiwan context, Taiwan startup context, to invest? Let's say you want to invest in a startup company, a founder coming and pitching you, could be local, could be a foreigner, or you can answer in a both way around. What are the most exciting top three qualities, let's say, that you're aiming to see? Starting from Elias?
No, I think Gaviann, he's the professional investor here. He should take lead.
Okay,
Right.
I'll start it. Firstly, we will say founder or co-founders' personalities. For example, we saw many Taiwanese team, and they have good education, but they all like they're too Chinese or Chinese culture. They, so sometimes they do not have vision. You know, what vision? What you are you going to change the world? What are you going to do? They do not have uh less less sort of concept. That's the biggest problem. So we focus on their personality in the very place. And secondly, it's about the capability of whole team. Can they reach what they promised, or just it's simply a dream, and we have to evaluate their capabilities, and then uh what sort of question, what actual problem resolved by their product or service or by the team. And the third thing is like help me to think about, is there any replacement not just your solution. Every founders will say, "Oh, my solution is the best in the world," but what your the challenge may not come from the competitors, but from replacements. But things like so these three components are what I think the most important thing while I interview and start.
Yeah, I basically agree. I mean, the first one, of course, ambition, right? Are they solving? Well, I always say you can start a coffee shop and just want to serve coffee at one location, or you can start a coffee shop and want to compete with Starbucks. And both entrepreneurial endeavors are completely valid, and I don't sneer at either one of them, right? It's totally okay to want to build something small, but if you're coming with a goal of trying to raise money, in most cases you need to think a bit bigger, right? And I think that's actually an area where I feel like I meet a lot of founders that are not looking big enough. They might be concentrating on a very small market. Like we're meeting immigrants in Taiwan that just want to sell to other immigrants in Taiwan, which is usually not big enough of a market. Or a Taiwanese founder that is kind of afraid to go into the global market because they say their English is not good enough or whatever. And I think that's not a valid excuse. As a founder, your job is to create an organization that has the skills to grow, right? Like I don't know how to do programming, but my company develops its own software, right? So and then so that's a big issue. um Another one would be, a lot of the people that start companies are technical people. They have invented something or they know how to create something, but very often they come and they show their product, and then you start asking about, well, how are you going to sell it? Who are you selling it to? Who are your customers? How are you going to reach them? And very often people have no clue. They'll throw out something generic, as in, well, I'll buy some Facebook ads or something like that. And I'm sorry, that's not gonna fly. As an investor, I want to know, if I give you this money, what are you gonna do with it? And it's gonna help you to reach, how many customers, for example. And the flip side of that is, do they know their own numbers, right? Do they understand, the unit economics of whatever products they're making or software they're making, how much money they can earn from each customer and stuff like that? And again, the type of early stage investors that I mean, the entrepreneurs that I meet with very often do not, they haven't really done that math yet. They coming there with their baby that they have been working on at home, and want to show me the product, and I want to know, well, can you make any money?
So I think this sounds like the conversation is more, how to say, more universal things that we're talking here, right? So, but I started to see some angle that is the competencies that the founders that I guess you guys are looking for, mostly global angle, like capabilities that the founder and the team has, and ambitions has to be go global or born global, right? So, could you give us like kind of maybe a check on the top of your head? How do you assess a startup's ability to scale and succeed long term from Taiwan? So a quick maybe check this just to wrap it up, because we are talking a lot of things here. The important thing is the globalization then. So give us something that actionable, a short list on the top of your head. You don't need to overthink.
Well, I'm a marketing and sales guy, so I would ask, show me literally where are the customers that you want to talk to. Can you show me 10 or 20 or 100, whatever, depends a little bit on the business model, right? But can you show me a number of customers that you are going to talk to tomorrow, for example, right? Like, just get to it and talk to them. Have you already gone and found them? Have you identified them on LinkedIn? Have you figured out what their contact information is? are you reaching out to them? Because if they are not doing that research about who they should be talking to, then it's not going forward.
A quick addition. Would you be investing in someone who can't speak English?
So if they wanted to go international, and again, if they have a solution for that, let's say they're either a co-founder, or if they have an employee who can do that international, why not? I mean, you think about most American global companies today, their co-founder, I mean, the founders of those companies, in many cases only spoke English when they started, maybe a second language, but they are now all over the world. So they had to solve that problem. So I don't see, a lack of English as a valid excuse for not going global.
You see, Gavin. So I'm also curious, but I'm going to a bit, focus on that angle, especially the very basics level, right? Because most of our audiences, early stage founders, right?
Yes.
So let's say a founder wants to go global, but cannot speak English. Would you invest?
Excuse me. I didn't hear your questions.
Let's say a founder wants to go global from Taiwan, but cannot
Yes.
speak the CEO and founder and CEO, let's say.
Mhm.
You still invest.
It's strange. The connection is quite bad.
Would-
You mean the founder and
Well, let me repeat again. Would you be investing in a startup founder who
yes.
is Taiwan, but wants to go global, sell to global, but cannot speak English? Would you be investing in him?
They can hire someone who can speak they can speak English. For Taiwanese VCs, we invest in those who can help us to make money. And normally they need to have some they need to have some revenue or some reputation in this market. And if they're going to go global, that is fine, but they need to present what are the plans. Do you have the relevant talent to go global? And what will your product or your service become? Because the UX, the UI will not be the same like your product in Taiwan. And all these sort of ideas need to be considered within their plan. So if the plan is solid, then why not?
All right. How do founders typically, approach to you guys to pitch you? How the founders pitch you? Would you prefer warm introduction or just call outreach or bump into you in the elevator?
Uh,
Just
uh,
Gaviann?
okay. I usually meet new startups through demo days. Yeah, I like accelerator. I like incubators. They help us a lot to gather the new startups. And because I'm CVC, I usually in the event I try to think which startup can fit my mission because I'm a CVC. So if it fit my mission, I will research it actively. Yeah, that's
Right.
what I try to reach the startups.
Yeah.
Great.
So
Elias?
for me, it's about Dragon's Chamber, my pitch event, right? So we actually open up, the application period every year, usually in May or June. The application period will then close in August, and then we start to audition people or meeting with people in early September and so on, and then we have a whole program for that. So most of the potential investments that I see are coming via that route, but not only, and of course there's other people around in that ecosystem too that I end up talking to and so on. But but most of my opportunities come via Dragon's Chamber.
I see. All right. I have some other questions, but I'm gonna like a rapid fire, quickly ask, and then because a lot of questions start to come, so I want to catch them up too. So the first one is, what makes us, what is a hot deal for you? I'm curious because every time I ask the same question in different tables across the world, I get very different answers because it's such a local thing actually. The hot deal in Silicon was very different. Hot deal in Japan is very different. But I'm curious, in Japan, what makes a hot deal? Oversubscribed. You just can't be, ignore them. That kind of deals. What is it for you? Who wants to start?
Well, let me just say this. I think one thing that you're pointing out here is the fact that I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand that different investors have very different profiles. Like Gaviann just pointed out that he's investing for a corporation, right? So most of his investments should have some connection to what his company does, right? Whereas I'm an early stage investor, and most of what I do, I look at immigrants in Taiwan because it just happens to be kind of a group that I have a soft spot for because that's who I am too, right? And I think that's one of those key things that many entrepreneurs don't really think about. They just kind of go out and anybody who has investor anywhere related to their name, they're like, oh, let me pitch you, but it might not be suitable. So I think that's a key point. So what's hot for one investor might be completely uninteresting to another. Don't you think, Gaviann?
Yes, I totally agree with you. But I would say, honestly, most Taiwanese VC or CVCs, they're not tend to take risk. Well, well, they're so-called ventures, but they don't. So if things like revenue can be easily predict, or where the customer come from can be predict, and in this case, that will be a very hard deal. For example, years ago, TSMC experienced a very serious security issue, and there was a startup called TX1 was formed by two well-known companies and to fix TSMC's problems. And in this case, you can definitely predict the future business development of TX1, and it will follow. It will it because TSMC will be his customer, and also the relevant supply chain of TSMC, and as a result, TX1 share makes Taiwanese VCs crazy now, and that's the hot deal in Taiwan for VCs.
I see. So relevancy to your thesis, especially, definitely makes sense. But sometimes there are deals that you just cannot ignore. Oh my God, I should have joined this one.
Well, so a friend of mine is currently working on a new business, and it's a business that could potentially help us really make a dent in the electricity consumption around the world. And I am dying to, put some money into that in the early stages here when he's just raising a little bit of money. And why? Well, first of all, it's a friend of mine, so I know that what he is capable of as a founder. And then second, the fact that it's B2B, which is something that I understand when it comes to how to do business and how to attract customers. And then the third one, of course, it's a business that, like I said, could help lower energy consumption, which is something that is very important to our quickly warming world, right? So to me, that I'm really hoping that there will be a chance for me to invest in that.
I see. As for our perspective, maybe quickly, Founder Institute is investing into startups, not the startups, the founders itself, right? Founder character is one of the most important factor for defining the success of the company, because they are initially the only asset of the company, the most important thing in the company, the founder. Hallelujah, God. Almost for that company at least. They are the one, and then they convey message. Everything you teach them extremely valuable, because they convey the idea, and that can be that it's a simple pitch. Even the making a good pitch can result in millions of dollars in funding. That is just mind blowing for me. Incredible. So that's why I'm asking these kind of things, because I'm trying to learn a playbook, build a playbook. So by asking everyone, and maybe it's gonna be a playbook, literally a playbook. Who knows? That's why I was asking, but I'm really learning a lot of things. But I'm curious one thing, which is I have to ask the red flags. What is a red flag for you guys? Like in a deal table, maybe he's hot, the deal is amazing, awesome deal, but it is something off, right? So it requires a lot of expertise, for sophistication to notice these kind of things. So what is a red flag for you in a deal?
Well, let me start it. If we ignore the ethic or criminal issues, my red flag is like if I see someone, a founder who attend to tons of incubators or accelerators, and he go to a podcast or a lot of interviews and try to become a KOL. Well, these sort of actions are my red flag.
Interesting.
Because it usually means the founder do not have the time to focus on his business. What he guarantee, what he promised will not reach.
Yeah.
Will not reach VC's expectations. So that's the red flag to me.
So I would say, is the person coachable? Meaning, are they listening? Because, I always say you need to talk to more people. Most likely the plan you have is faulty in some way. And only by being out there and presenting your business to more people and taking in suggestions from more people can you help to refine your business idea, right? But there are some entrepreneurs that are so in love with their own plan that they just will not listen to anybody else. And I see that as a huge red flag, because that makes me believe that even if they start doing, let's say, they start selling their MVP maybe or whatever, and the customers are saying, well, I really would like it, in black rather than blue or whatever, they will just say, well, I'm Steve Jobs, so you should listen to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And this session has been great, honestly, this webinar. It would be great that we could maybe dive in more with maybe one-on-one podcast or something like this later with you guys. Because I'm learning a lot of things. Because I'm on this, stage of my career that I need to learn more, right? That's why it's a pretty great excuse for me to talk with some people like you guys, much experience and knowledgeable. Really appreciate it. So as a summary, Gaviann, overexposure of founder that can be distract, right? That could be a red flag. That's great, because some of our founders, our portfolio founders, are doing it, even though we're trying to warn them. But overexposure, but it could be okay after they have some level of scale. The founders brand can be contribute, right? But and then Elias, especially the coachability. This is also one of the most important thing in our programs too. If the founder is not coachable by default, you just basically cannot work. But some of the founders are really interesting. They are not. What was the right word for this? They are conscientious, but they are at the same time contradicting. I think there is a right word in English, but I just couldn't come. They're contradicting because they're truth seekers, like kind of living, philosophers. They constantly search. It's a bit harder to, agree with them, but they are the one, like, really different person, and they really make it happen quietly. They might not look agreeable. Do you have any comment on this? Have you ever encountered, Elias, some people like this?
You mean a person that has a kind of a little bit of an acidic personality? You mean like they're not so personable? Is that what you're meaning?
Yeah, maybe contradicting, but not. He is maybe coachable. Maybe he says, "Yes, sir, I'm gonna do it," but at the same time comes with bunch of scientific facts.
trying to convince you why he is right rather than, or he or she is right rather than listening. Yeah, more argumentative. There are certainly people who are like that, right? They are so sure they are right, and of course that's to some extent that's needed, right? You as a founder, I mean, it's like Jensen Huang said, right? Like starting a company is not the rational thing to do. It's crazy. I mean, the amount of effort and time and tears that it takes to start a company is just not, reasonable. So you have to be a little bit stubborn, right? But at the same time, you have to be able to talk to people and take in facts and explore them, right? So again, I'm not saying that I'm always right. 100, I mean, very, very, very not that. So if I give a suggestion to somebody, it's really just that. It's a suggestion. And a founder can take that suggestion and say, okay, let me think about it. And they might come back and try to convince me that, or tell me why I'm wrong, or they might actually test that assumption, the scientific method, right? They test it and say, okay, Elias, this was a good idea, but let me tell you why I think that it wasn't correct. And of course, it should be a back and forth, right? And you should feel like you can have that conversation. Otherwise, yeah, I don't think it's a good relationship.
I see. Before starting to asking, accepting questions, I just checked out my questions and realized that there are really important one to mention. One of them is especially foreigners, because most of the audience is foreigners, and I know Elias, you're focusing on immigrant founders in Taiwan, which is very interesting. I'm also focused on this. I mean, but not only focused on this. I mean, one of my intention also split into them and the locals as well. Half in our cohorts, half Japanese or half Korean, and other half is the generally experience, expats. But I'm curious, especially Gaviann's point of view. Have you ever invested in or collaborated with a foreigner founder in Taiwan, which is expat, let's say? That's one. And then what unique challenges that you guys see the foreigners has in Taiwan? Shall we start from Gaviann this one?
I did. Well, but he isn't he's an Asian. Like, I mean, he immigrated to Australia, but he is still a Chinese. And I did invested in his companies. Although he's only Chinese within that startup. I mean, the problem, the real problem for VCs and CVCs in Taiwan, we don't tend to invest in foreigners company because there's one reason that uh usually this sort of stuff they have global visions, and therefore they will put their focus or their in potential market in US or EU. And as a result, VC or CVC is a very localized industry, and so the deal makers, the GPs, they may not have resource, they may not have connections in the US or in the EU, and so what they can offer are just money. They cannot provide others. And if they consider this sort of situation, they will tend to, okay, well, maybe not this one. And that's the reason that it's hard for you to make deal with Taiwanese VCs, because, well, if you're going global, if you're going to US, if you're not stay in Taiwan, or you are not going to IPO in Taiwan, you are not there. There is no potential M&A companies in your industry in Taiwan. Well, then they cannot see a proper return from you, and so they will not invest in you.
Interesting. Yeah, this makes sense. Okay. Elias?
So I would guess that let's say the older VC firms or the CVCs that, in Taiwan, that's for sure, it makes sense, right? But a comment on that is that, um, again, you need to think about who you should be raising money from, right? And if you are a foreigner setting up a business in Taiwan, or I would say immigrant, right? For somebody like me who has been here for forever and ever, I'm choosing to live here. If you want to raise money in Taiwan, you really have to have a good argument for why are you doing this in Taiwan, right? It could be because you happens to be living here, but it could also be because, again, you're tapping into the industries that Taiwan is strong at, and so on. And then, whether you are Taiwanese or not, you probably have a good reason for looking for Taiwan money, because they will understand the supply chains and the and all of that stuff. But if you're looking at one of the reasons why I spend so much time on immigrant entrepreneurs in Taiwan is because if I compare Taiwan to other countries, to the US, UK, Canada, and many other countries, the rate of entrepreneurship among the immigrants that are living here is very, very low compared to other countries. Just picking one number, for example, in the UK, 14% of all companies are founded by somebody who was not born in that country. 14%. Here in Taiwan, we are looking at less than 1%. Okay. In the US, immigrants to Taiwan are more than, I think it's 50% more likely to start a company than the local born people. So, and I feel like the fact that Taiwan doesn't have that strong of immigrant entrepreneur community here, I think is bad for Taiwan, because if we had more people coming from other countries to Taiwan, setting up businesses here, that, those people come with their networks around the world, right? And I think that, some of these problems we spoke about earlier with it, let's say a local founder that might not have that global mindset, or might feel, uncomfortable about going global because of language issues or cultural issues, that could be solved. Why don't we find an immigrant and a Taiwanese person to, co-found a company, and then we have the perfect match with somebody who is firmly based here in Taiwan, but can also go international. So I think that's, something that would be very good for Taiwan if we can promote more of this. But of course, most Taiwanese people don't even know about the immigrant entrepreneurs that have already made it rich here. For example, one of the richest men in the world, a deca billionaire, is a Swedish guy that came to Taiwan in the late 80s and set up a company here. 2 years ago, he bought the yacht for 285 million US dollars. That's how rich he is. And that's because he set up a company here in Taiwan. And I think most Taiwanese people have no clue that there are, that level of success among the immigrants in Taiwan. And if you want to know more about the challenges, I can talk about that forever.
If you know more about the Taiwan business, buy Elias' book now.
Yeah. No, but there are definitely challenges to be a non-Taiwanese setting up companies here. For example, the banks over here are not very foreign friendly. Again, you have the investment commission. That means that if you want to set up your own business here, even though you are investing in your own business, you need to go to the Ministry of Economic Affairs and basically saying, would you please let me invest in this business? Which is a bit of an issue. But
yeah.
That being said, none of those issues, I think, is a reason not to do it here. If you have a good reason to be here, or if you have good suppliers here, or you think that you have good employees here to build your business, those let's call them, legal technical issues can in most cases be overcome, especially if you network and find mentors to help you.
Right.
Well,
Most
allow me to add something. Well, if you wanna do business here in Taiwan, and you have trust issue, don't know who you should trust, there's a simple way that that is you can visit your embassy to ask for some help. It's their job to help citizens to develop the business here.
or
They
ask the
have two, yeah, they have two duties. They try to attract, for example, AIT or British office. They try to attract Taiwanese company to invest in US and invest in UK or invest in UK. And also, one of their duty is help US or UK companies to do business here. You can ask for this sort of help, and their information be relatively reliable, better than you found some FA or you hear something from friends. The quality of the information would be much better.
Let's see. All right. Okay. So Daniel is asking, in Taiwan, where trust and relationships are very important, how can a new startup with no customers build a trust to get their first client? Interesting question. And do VCs care about kind of early trust when deciding to invest in Taiwan? This is his question. Daniel, thanks for the question. It's actually an immigrant type of question,
Yeah. I mean, any company that is coming into Taiwan, whether you are a billion-dollar company or you're starting something from scratch, you have to start by building up that trust, right? You're gonna have to go out and find a couple of customers. You might have to give them free services. You have to do whatever it takes to be able to gain some local case studies. But I would say that Taiwan is probably harder in this aspect than many other countries. I've had quite a few friends that they are based in Taiwan, but they are selling products in the whole Asian region. And I met quite a few of them that after they say things, the story goes, I've been here in Taiwan now for 5-6 years. I now have customers in Japan and Hong Kong and Singapore, but I haven't found a single customer in Taiwan yet. And especially I would say on the corporate side, Taiwanese companies tend to be very conservative. But that's where this is my business, right? For 23 years, Inspire has been helping B2B companies to enter the Taiwan market. So, I would say, just figure out a way to get started. You need to find that one company that is willing to take a chance on you, and you might have to, like I said, give them the services for free or whatever, but you need to build some local case studies.
I see. Agree. So again, just like in universal truth, 100% agree. But I think Gavian, your opinion on that is also very necessary, right? So how to get a first customer as a foreigner in Taiwan?
Well, in simple way, find a Taiwanese co-founder, and he will tell you where is your potential customer is. Then that's why don't you hire or just hire some Taiwanese, and they can direct tell you this sort of answers. And if there is no Taiwanese within your company, and like Alice said, well, it's really hard for you to develop your business in Taiwan. Very, very hard. And it's better for you if you can speak in Taiwanese or Chinese, well, or Mandarin, well, it helps you to develop business here. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's very hard to start having meetings if you totally don't speak any of the local languages. I mean, like many of my customers are international companies, but our contact people are still preferring to speak Chinese, right?
Yes.
Mandarin. So again, this is, you can solve this problem if you don't want to hire somebody full time. Find somebody who is part time. Find an intern. There are certainly ways to doing this incrementally so that you can get the help that you need to communicate with people.
Yes.
Most definitely. Well, ability of attracting talent is also one of the, a good indicator or a good company actually to, hire or just contractor or even volunteers. People should be able to figure out this, right? So anyways, the first person who asked question, I was just couldn't, so she get back to me, which is Paulina. I'm gonna pick up your question. So is it make sense to attract a fund for MVP development? This is kind of universal question, but let's answer in a Taiwan perspective. I guess she's based in there. She would like to, I guess it's a female name, I don't know, Paulina. I would like to develop an app which is in the field of HR, sorry. And does it make sense to get funding for building an MVP? Who wants to go?
Yeah.
Build MVP in Taiwan. Yes, from my opinion, it's Taiwan. Like I mentioned, Taiwan is a very interesting place. It influenced by many countries, accept many cultures from different countries, and it's a good place to develop your own MVP here. And people here will give you a lot of feedback, help you to try to reach it. But remember one thing: do not fully make your business here, because if you try to build what Taiwanese, you try to make the product as all Taiwanese tell you, well, this product or this service may not go global, may not go to other countries. Well, that's the tricky thing.
I see. Okay. Elias?
So maybe the question is more like, one thing that has changed over the last 10, 15 years is that the cost of making an MVP, whether it's hardware or software, has gone down a lot, right? Like now at least supposedly, there are, AI apps where you can go and tell it, build me an app of blah, 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 and it just does it for you, right? So, the question is maybe, does it make sense to go out to raise money to build an MVP? If that's the question, I would say, a lot of investors now, I think, would kind of expect you to have something when you come to talk to them. Again, because it's gotten cheaper. So yeah, I think you might, if you can, right? If it's economically feasible, I think if you can build, the first very, very early MVP with your own funds first, I think that's what we are mostly seeing these days. What do you think, Gaviann? Does it make sense?
Indeed. Yes, indeed. If you're going to reach VC, they will mm, they will think you already have something. You already some of them even want you to have product market fit. So if you wanna if you wanna build your MVP here, totally fine. But it would be better by your own money from or the funds from your family, your friends, or some angels. It would be fine. But well,
Yeah.
Taiwanese VC don't take risk.
Yeah. I see similar things in Japan too. But in Silicon Valley, things different. What I see there is the belief capital is a pretty common too. So with just a simple pitch, you believe that you trust the founders, so you're just here to go money. So they believe that joining early will be make sense for someone like this person. But generally speaking, honestly, you gotta build something even without any capital needed. As some prototype, some scratches, something that you maybe with a spreadsheet, you go pitch some customers, get some yeses, or get some LOIs or something like this. I always ask our founders to put yourself into, investor's position, especially within your own, let's say angel investor position. You're investing in a company with just promise. It's just, it's not that easy to make decision, right? They always have to have some idea to de-riskify this decision by putting themselves into their shoes. We see this one a lot with this kind of questions a lot, honestly. But especially to, just like the Elias said, current condition, you could build a lot of things without any capital needed, actually. Anyways, okay, let's go to the next person. So he says, what produce must a non-Taiwanese entrepreneur follow to secure funding in Taiwan for an AI startup that hasn't been formally registered yet?
Yeah, okay, I can jump into that one. So, I mean, there are these days, we talked about how, I mean, in Taiwan now, there are quite a few angel groups and so on that are, they have a website. You can go and find them and you can pitch to them. I would say, for sure, take a look at Dragon's Chamber, my event, as maybe a very first stage place to go looking. I think that you need to invest quite a lot of time in networking, so attending events and so on, just to start building up your network, because that's where a non-Taiwanese person lacks, right? Because you have left your own country, you're coming to this country, you don't have as big of a network of the family and friends here, so that you can look into. But you don't have to have a company to start talking to investors, right? Because it could also be that you're finding investors that, let's say, for example, you did register a company here in Taiwan, and then you're finding a non-Taiwanese investor, and they will say, well, I would prefer for you, to have a registered company in Singapore, for example. So I don't think that's a problem. If you have, like, you're building an MVP, you have done something that, it's not, how should I put it? You developing your company and you setting up the registering the business are two separate tracks, so to speak, for a very early stage company.
Well, if you are a light asset investment, I mean software startup, AI startup, well, you can try AppWorks Accelerator. And it's the biggest software ecosystem in Taiwan. And it could be your very first step, then try to reach this market. Well, they also develop their business in Southeast Asia, and I think they are quite well known. That's what I can recommend.
Yeah, there are quite a few different, I mean, AppWorks, Spark Labs, there are several accelerators that you can take a look at for sure. And they all have events. You can go there, you can start getting to know them, you can try to find them. Or you have, of course, Founder Institute,
I was waiting on it. Who was going to mention this? All right, thank you guys for appreciate it. So I would like to add a couple of things really quick. That's what Founder Institute and all the other programs comes to play, right? It's similar to Paulina's question. So, like, we don't really need to seek any validation. You just can come and apply, and then we have higher percentage of the choosing the start, like 10 to 20%, depending on region. So you can just try, but you won't get enough funding initially. But you need a lot of things other than funding, actually, initially. Then they create a kind of success track record in a short period of time, 3 months ish, and then seek funding out of it. We can help you in that, all of these, right? That's why it's really important to mention. And second thing I would like to mention is related about the local ecosystem, English speaking or not, that sort of thing. Get the first customers, etc. That's why I like the venture ecosystem. Most of the venture, like venture capitals or accelerators and so on, can speak English. So I think foreigners can be really utilize these kind of things to pitch their idea, get some traction or get validation, find their first employee, first customer, and so on easily. We never restrict people. If you join us, you have to sell. Sell to your cohort member, your pitch. Your job is pitching, right? An entire thing. That's why it's really good solution for the Japan and Taiwan and Korea as well, because I see super similarities in between these similar challenges. And it's not about just language thing, because these three countries are, high context culture they have. So it's not that easy because language different and cultures will take, So I believe these kind of things can be really, useful. And we always collaborate with the other programs as well. And you're asking, Taiwan is very well established in the semiconductor space, but do you see many services based on direct customer to startups? Direct to customer startups, B2C startups, do you see? I see. Maybe we can just answer a very quick one, this one.
You mean semiconductor stuff?
No.
Many semiconductor, but do you see successful example of the B2C startups from Taiwan?
I would say definitely fewer for sure.
It's mostly B2B, right?
Well, so at Meet Taipei, which is the largest event every year for startups, usually about 60% of the startups that are displaying there are usually B2B, and the other 40% would then be consumer type products. But no, I haven't seen very many. I've seen a few, and Dragon's Chamber had a few too, but not so many successful direct to consumer products, I would say. I could be wrong there. Again, I'm all
Correct.
I'm all about B2B, so I don't really see those.
Well, if you're in Taiwan, you'll notice that I mean, to customer to see market, the most service we use are from US or from Japan or Korea. So there's I don't think there is original Taiwanese service here. Yeah, I agree with Alice.
I see. Okay, I think we used the time mostly. I'd like to ask you, all of you, that maybe some couple of advice, some final words before we wrap up. So, any final advice, right, Gaviann?
Get to it. Entrepreneurship doesn't get better by waiting. Again, it's a tough thing to do, but I don't regret having to get into this, and investors are actually there looking for something to invest in. That's the whole point why they exist. So don't be afraid to approach investors and talk to them.
Well,
Gaviann?
from me, I think you might learn a lot from your original countries, your own ecosystem. But if you're going to do business in a foreign countries, well, trust your government more. Like I suggest, you can visit your embassy and ask for help. They have a lot of information about the Taiwanese ecosystems. So, well, ask them more. It's their duties as well.
Thank you both of you. Really appreciate it. So that concludes the session, and we're gonna be meeting the AirMeet link, but there is a technical issue we will be solving after saying bye bye to our speakers today. And I would love to meet with you in person in Taiwan. I'm thinking about visiting maybe next month. If you guys are on there, would love to have a nice Taiwanese cuisine. I really miss the food, honestly. Even this, food and the people, amazing people, is enough to be actually frequently meet there. Love the culture and everything. We both are based in Taipei.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Taipei.
Oh, great. I've been also in Kaohsiung too. It was delicious. It was so delicious. City is delicious. Yeah, it's amazing.
All right. Come to see us.
Come
Yes.
to see us.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. See you guys.